So, hello everyone and welcome to Berlin, the capital of Germany. I'm really excited to be in this city. It's such an incredible place with a fantastic energy, a lot of life, and it's one of these cities with an incredible history as well. The city's been through so much. The people of this city have seen so many different changes and things going on, and now I find it one of the most interesting places in the world to come and visit and discover and explore. So I've been here about 2 days now, getting to know the place, getting to know the atmosphere. I'm staying in an area called Neukölln, which is a part in the southeast of the city. It's a really vibrant area, and there's a large Turkish community in this part of Berlin, so there's a lot of Turkish shops and Turkish bars and things like that. So I'm really excited. I'm going to jump on the underground now and hopefully get to know some of the sights and sounds of Berlin and make the most of this city, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm now on the Berlin Underground system. It's a fantastic network that combines overground and underground trains, and you can get a 24-hour rail ticket for €9.50, which is really reasonable. So I started on the line 8 and I'm now at Alexanderplatz, and I'm changing on to line number 2, which is the red line. The trains are very regular, so it is a really good way of getting around Berlin, and it's really efficient and really quick.
U8 nach Wittenau. Einsteigen bitte.
I'm now in an area of Berlin called Prenzlauerbuerg in the northeast of the city, and I'm right next to the metro station or the underground station called Elberswalder Straße. This place right behind me is called Konnopke's Imbiss. This is Konnopke's cafe, and it's a legendary spot in Berlin for having some of the best currywurst in the whole city. So currywurst is one of the most popular snacks in Germany. It's basically sausage chopped up, covered in a curry sauce, which is a bit like a ketchup with curry powder on the top, and normally it's served with chips or bread, and it's absolutely delicious. It's really flavoursome, really tasty.
One large
Hallo, guten Tag, einmal Currywurst mit Pommes bitte. So I've got my currywurst with chips. This was €6.90, and this is a really good snack that you can get in Berlin. We've got chips, mayonnaise, the classic ketchup with the curry powder on top. So yeah, I'm really excited to try this and see what it's like. Here we go. This is my first try of currywurst in Berlin, one of the most popular snacks that they have here in Germany. Really good. So the sauce is quite sweet. It's got a kind of spicy flavour to it from the curry sauce, and then the mayonnaise gives it a smoothness as well. And really tasty chips, very crunchy, really good flavour also with some curry powder on top. Yeah, really tasty, really great food. So my currywurst and chips were absolutely delicious. It's a really interesting mixture of textures. So the chips are very crunchy and crispy, and the sausage with the sauce was quite soft and chewy. Then also you had the sweet and sour sauce with the curry powder that was really interesting flavors, really good mix of flavors. So yeah, this is really great place. €6.90 is not expensive for a delicious snack like this. And it's kind of a cult legendary place in Berlin, so I definitely recommend checking out Konnopke's Imbiss in Prenzlauerbuerg. So have a look at all the different awards that this cafe has been awarded, all the different prizes and presentations that it's got. And just for the record, it is closed on Sundays and Mondays. One really interesting thing to remember about Berlin is that a lot of people here speak English. So it's a very cosmopolitan city, very international, very dynamic, and I was actually surprised by the amount of people who do speak English here. So even when you go into coffee shops, bars, restaurants, the people working there will speak English, but actually a lot of the customers also speak English. So This wasn't actually the case when I was in Hamburg. In Hamburg, there was a lot more German spoken, whereas here you can get away with speaking English most of the time, which is really handy if you don't speak German. So I'm now on Alexanderplatz, or the Alexander Square, in the east side of Berlin. So this is a big focal point for the city. It was named after Tsar Alexander I from Russia, who came to visit this place in Berlin in 1805. And it has long been an important centre for trading and commerce. So there's always been a lot of shops, sellers, vendors in this area. Interestingly, also it's a hub for public transport in Berlin. So there are no fewer than 6 overground and underground lines that connect here. So if you are getting around the city, this is an important spot for navigating your journey across Berlin. Alexanderplatz has had a few different incarnations over the years, and more recently it was bombed during the Second World War, and it got largely redeveloped during the 60s and 70s. So a lot of the buildings you see are very modern buildings, but they're also building new ones, as you can see from all of the cranes that are surrounding the square at the moment. There's a good selection and range of retail, catering and shops, mainly chains, I would say. So Alexanderplatz is home to a few local landmarks, including this one, which is the World Clock. And it seems like this is a place for demonstrations as well. So there's a few people with placards here demonstrating. If you look at all the different cities, you can see the different time zones that it's representing. So we've got Brasilia, Rio de Janeiro, Caracas, La Paz, Panama, Lima. Yes, this is a really funky clock. And on this side we've got more catering outlets. So just a bit further down on the Alexanderplatz is this landmark known as the Fernsehturm, or the TV Tower. And this is the tallest building in the whole of Germany. So it's very recognizable in the city. And this was built when this part of the city was part of East Germany. This was built in 1965 to 1969. It was built when Berlin was a divided city between the Russian communist side and the Allied capitalist sides, and this was on the East communist side. So not only does this serve as a TV tower, it represents the power that the communism wanted to demonstrate, and also you can go right to the top of the tower to get panoramic views of the entire city. This is the Rotes Rathaus, this is the Red City Hall, and this is actually the Berlin City Hall, so for the council. And this building was completed in 1869 and was quite badly damaged during the war and has been completely renovated since then. At the top of the tower you can just see the flag of Berlin, which is the red and white with the black bear in the middle. So this is another major landmark right on Alexanderplatz. Here we have the Neptune fountain, which is a really popular fountain in the center of Alexanderplatz. And just behind you can see the Marienkirche, so the Marian Church, which is a church that's got some Gothic features. And the Alexanderplatz is quite interesting because there's a really interesting mix of architecture. So right next to the Gothic church you've got the Fernsehturm, the TV tower, and you can see the cranes in the background where they're constructing new buildings as well. So it's a really interesting palimpsest of architecture here on the Alexanderplatz, which gives you an insight into some of the history of Berlin. One of the really good things about Berlin is that it's not too busy. It's a big city. There's a population of over 3 million, but it's not super overrun with tourists. Even though it's got a lot going on, it's not crazy mad busy, and that means that navigating the public transport here is not a problem. It's really straightforward to get around. It's got a really efficient public transport network. So just adjacent to the Alexanderplatz is this area called the Hackischer Markt, and specifically where we are now is the Marx-Engels Forum, and behind me you can see the statue of the two philosophers that was erected in 1986. The sculptor that designed it was called Ludwig Engelhardt. Karl Marx is sitting down and Friedrich Engels is standing up, and these are two of the most important German philosophers in history. And obviously the most important thing that they produced was the Communist Manifesto that was published in 1849, which was a revolutionary pamphlet, and it produced what we now know as Marxism, which is a very important political philosophy that has influenced a lot of politics across the world. So this is a fitting tribute to those two German philosophers, and you can see the size of the statues represents how important they are in Germany for their intelligence and for their powers of thought. Just crossing over the bridge now from the Hackischer Platz onto the Museum Insel, and we've got our first view of the River Spree in Berlin. And as you can see, there are lots of boats and barges going across the water, enjoying this waterway, and this one looks like a party that's going on board. Very cool. Yeah, so on this side you've got what's known as Museum Insel or Museum Island. Just to the right is the Berliner Dom, or the Berlin Cathedral. So now arriving at the Lustgarten, right in the center of Berlin on the Museum Island. So from the Lustgarten you can get a really good view of some of the main museums and monuments in Berlin. So on that side is the Humboldt Forum, which is a research center. Here you've got the Berlin Cathedral, the Berliner Dom, and right at the end of this road you've got the Neues Museum, which is an art gallery. And then if you go onto the main bit of the garden here, on the right you've got the Altes Museum, or the Old Museum, with the very recognizable colonnade on the front. Yeah, so this is a really beautiful garden, and it's got some of the main attractions and sights to see in Berlin. The Berliner Dom, or the Berlin Cathedral, was completed in 1750 originally with a Baroque design, and then it has been restyled later on in a neo-Baroque style. The copper roof, or the copper dome, is 98 meters high. So it's one of the most impressive and recognizable landmarks in the city, and obviously a center for religious people as well. And here you can see the Altes Museum, or the Old Museum, and this building was built in a neoclassical style in 1830 and has a collection of Roman and Greek art and sculptures. This is one of the most important museums in the whole of Berlin. Despite Berlin being a very modern and dynamic city, it's managed to retain a lot of its history and its culture, and you can see that really clearly here in the Lustgarten. So I think it's a very interesting balance between tradition and history and modernity. So Berlin is one of the most modern, dynamic, forward-looking cities in the world, but it's also done a really good job of retaining its history and its culture to create a kind of balanced feel to the city. So it's the end of the summer now, it's the 1st of September, and the temperature is about 19 degrees, so it's not really hot, but nevertheless, people are out and about enjoying the green spaces of Berlin. So Berlin's known for having lots of parks, it's a green city, and therefore there are lots of public spaces for people to go out and enjoy themselves and relax. And here the Lustgarten is one of those small but interesting parks. Right now, I'm at the most iconic landmark in the whole city of Berlin, the Brandenburg Gate, or in German, the Brandenburger Tor. So you see images of this all over the city, and even on the underground station, they've got these on the trains on the windows, so it's become a real landmark and symbol of the city of Berlin itself. The gate itself was built in the 1790s, and it was commissioned by the Emperor Frederick William II, who was the Emperor of Prussia. It served originally as a city gate, and interestingly, the four horses on the top of the gate are known as the Quadriga and are meant to represent the power of the Prussian state. When Napoleon actually invaded Berlin in 1806, he removed the Quadriga statues, took it to Paris, and then these were actually restored after Napoleon was defeated in 1814 and brought back to Berlin and placed on top of the Brandenburg Gate again. So it's a really important symbol for the history of not just Berlin but also Germany. The Platz and the Brandenburg Gate have become an important centre in Berlin for giving demonstrations. Because it's a focal point for the city, if people want to be noticed and put out a political message, they quite often come here and make their protest or their demonstration here, because it's such an important site in the city of Berlin. The Brandenburg Gate has now become a symbol for unity, the unity of not only Berlin but also Germany, and a symbol for peace and reconciliation, which are some of the really important values that Germany as a country stands for. So here you can see they've got a protest going on for Julian Assange, so they want to free Julian Assange. And then on this side they've got a protest in favour of Syria and Kurdistan. So yeah, you can see that the Paris Square and the Brandenburg Gate are still an important place for manifestations and protests. So here you can see the Quadriga statue right at the top of the Brandenburg Gate in a bit more detail. You can see the horses and the horsemen at the top. It's got very neoclassical style with the Doric columns, very ornate, very beautiful structure. And the Quadriga horses are facing towards the east of the city. So it's been an absolute joy getting to know Berlin again. I've not been to the city for about 10 years, and it's as interesting and as beautiful as I remember it. Incredible culture, incredible history, and I love the mix of the old with the new in this city. So obviously a lot of the city has been rebuilt, but it's kept that really integral part of its identity, and it's kept some of the old buildings and redeveloped them as well. For me, Berlin is such an open, tolerant, friendly, welcoming city. You see signs all over the city saying things like refugees are welcome, and I think for a long time especially since the reunification of Germany, it's had this very open-minded and welcoming mentality that makes it such an enjoyable place to spend time. So even as a tourist coming here for 2 or 3 days, it's got a special atmosphere, special vibe, and it just feels like that people are allowed to be themselves and to be who they want to be. So in that respect, it's a fantastic place to spend time, a wonderful place to visit, and even though the weather hasn't been great, I've still really enjoyed spending time in Germany and getting to know this fantastic country a bit more. So thanks very much for watching. I really appreciate your time. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Bye.